3 million years ago, when the first groups of humans were appearing on Earth, our main character was one of them. At first glance, he looked like any normal Australopithecus. But there was something else, something that made him unique among the rest. His obsession with hunting was on a different level. But the main character still thought he was like the others. But soon he realized something was seriously wrong. Meanwhile, the people around him were slowly aging. They grew weaker and eventually died. He never died. Whether it was a disease, accident, or an animal attack, nothing affected him. Time passed, generations came and went. But he remained the same as he was. Actually, he had changed a little. His body kept growing larger, more muscular and powerful. In this never-ending timeline, hunting, fighting, and battling any enemy in uniform became his life's purpose. The curse of immortality and the unbearable pain of loneliness were his real companions, and strangely enough, they also provided him some comfort. For nearly 3 million years, he lived like that. Every day, a new evolution took place in his body. His strength progressively reached the next level. Then one day, he reached a point where no one could match his strength. People began calling him the Earth's god, Mouse. His power became so extreme that he defeated all the other gods and took the title of most powerful in the divine realm. But then a twist came in the story. Now there was no one left who could challenge him. His days filled with thrill and excitement had now become a never-ending cycle of boredom. To show his frustration, Mouth one day simply lifted his foot and struck the ground. The divine realm, which was like a mini-planet, shook with great force. And that was just the beginning. The entire divine world entered literal earthquake mode. Every god, angel, and even the demons inside trembled with fear. Of course, this wasn't the first time that Mouth had performed such a stunt. But now there were some gods who were daily getting fed up with this kind of behavior. One of them was Lucifer, the second most powerful god of the divine realm. Mouth, who had now completely sunk into boredom. He behaved as if he didn't care at all about this destruction. His mind was filled with just one thought. He had defeated every worthy opponent without effort. And now more than 1,000 years had passed since anyone truly challenged him. Now his heart yearned for a worthy opponent. There must be someone who could give him a reason to fight again. Taking a deep breath, Mouth muttered to himself. Being too powerful is also a problem. As soon as these words came out of his mouth, something clicked in his mind. After 1,000 years of non-stop frustration, a sudden sense came that he had made a genius-level breakthrough. If his strength is his problem, then the solution must be found. Then the solution is also right there. He just has to find a way to weaken himself. It was entirely obvious to him. If he acquires a weak body like the people on Earth, there will be hundreds of rivals fighting against him. Suddenly, Mouth shot up from the seat and screamed loudly, "Dragon." And then a massive dragon appeared in the sky and fell to the ground with a thunder-like landing. His height was at least 5 times greater than God's throne. It looked super creepy, as if he didn't like being summoned. But he always looked like that. His glowing eyes clearly showed that this is Assistant Dragon Lim, the top god's aide. The dragon's attitude changed after a while. He asked V. Grohl for assistance. Why was I summoned, but Mouth was in a chill mode? He casually started walking away from Mouth and calmly said, "Take care of everything after I leave." But things didn't go as smoothly as Mouth had imagined. And the dragon suddenly made a bold move. He cast an absolute spell. Mouth tried to stop him by grabbing his throat. But as soon as Mouth turned his head and gave him a side glance, he too filled with anger. Everything changed. The dragon's entire fierce and wild attitude melted away in a second. He suddenly looked scared and ashamed. Stuttering, he tried to justify himself. He said he had no intention of disrespecting Mouth, but he should have at least given an explanation, especially when there was an important meeting of the gods about to happen soon. Mouse, however, didn't care about that meeting at all. Without saying anything, he started walking again, and he kept dragging the dragon in chains as if it was nothing. When his first move failed, Lim quickly changed his strategy. And now he played the victim card. He cried while saying if Mouth didn't go to the meeting, everything would fall on him. And he would have to endure non-stop complaints from other deities. Mouth broke that binding spell without any effort, as if it were just cobweb. Then he turned around to look at the dragon and screamed, "I'm not going anywhere if you're ready to fight with me right now." Just saying that was enough to completely change Lim's attitude. He realized that enduring the tantrums of the other gods is easier than directly clashing with Mouth's face. He quickly put his hands together and said, "Safe journey, sir. May your travel be short and peaceful." He smiled lightly and moved forward. There, a floating mini version of Earth hovered. He reached out his hand and touched the surface of that mini Earth. As soon as he touched it, a question arose in his mind. Now whose body should I enter? To make the decision easy, he started listening to the prayers and messages of those earthlings that were being sent to the gods. Most of them were completely useless and boring. But then a message completely caught his attention. It was a message that raised questions about his entire existence. In the beginning, Mun was slightly irritated. But then he quickly realized this was the one. By entering his body, he can start his journey again. For the first time in 1,000 years, Mun truly felt excitement. He finally found the ultimate solution to his endless boredom. But while Mun is superb with his strategy, the assistant was not. The assistant didn't seem very excited. For a few seconds, Mun wondered whether he should give an explanation before leaving. But with his full Sigma attitude, he decided there was no need to explain anything. Dragon was a little confused and shocked. When Moon casually said goodbye, he left everything in your trust and said that during your non-stop absence, if anyone comes, take care of them. A strange mix of anger and disappointment was running in Dragon's heart. He finally understood that Moon is sending his soul to Earth and leaving his body in the divine realm. Panicking, Dragon tried to warn him. If something happens to your body, your separated soul on Earth will also die. But Moon's mind was already set. He was completely confident that no one in the divine realm would dare do anything to his body. Who would dare? That was his vibe. And in this overconfidence, he thought his body would remain completely safe. Dragon tried to stop him, but only with words. But Moon, as always, totally ignored his assistant's words and did what he thought was right. Without any further explanation, the scene instantly switched. Now there was no Moon. He was a new person. A person who had just won an intense battle and defeated the Demon Lord. The feeling of victory was overwhelming, and there was no limit to that person's happiness. But this wasn't real life. This was just the final scene of a video game, which a 17-year-old loser player had just completed a few moments ago. His name was Lei Ho, a boy who was painfully jealous of every game's protagonist. Those lucky heroes who have crazy adventures, and who always create massive romances with cute girls. While watching the rolling credits on the screen, Lee felt overwhelmed. If only his life were also like that. At that moment, Lee suddenly dropped his phone. It slipped from his hand and fell from a great height to the ground. The phone hit the ground in just seconds and was completely shattered. It was now clear why Lee was standing on the edge of a 3-story building. Nothing left to live for. He was going to end his life. His body was trembling. It was filled with scars. With a bitter goodbye to this cruel and unfair world, he muttered and jumped. As he fell, the wind whistled past him. With tear-filled eyes, Lee screamed, "If there is any God up there, then this is your chance. Prove it, send me to another world." But before his prayer could be fulfilled, he collided with the ground. Blood splattered in all directions. His head collided directly with the sidewalk. By all logic, Lee should have died there. But something weird is happening. Lee's hand flailed. His chest rose and he suddenly took a deep breath, as if he had been saved from drowning. He didn't even realize it. But Mouth, the god who stole the soul, had taken over his body at lightning speed. It happened just before the moment when he collided. Now I have to feel the pain of Lee's battered, broken body. He also didn't understand what actually happened. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lee's soul had reached the divine realm. He was standing there completely stunned. His mouth literally seemed to lie on the ground. But his shock wasn't just that he was in another world. The real jolt came when he saw that a gigantic dragon was standing in front of him. And it didn't seem happy at all. But the shock wasn't only felt by Lee. The dragon had also become rooted in place. He did not expect to see a human soul in the divine realm so quickly. Just as Lee, after his death, did not expect the first thing he saw to be the angry, steering eyes of a dragon. Now let's rewind for a second. Just 10 seconds before this chaos, Gotham was standing there in his iconic smog. He was touching the miniature Earth, relaxed and confident. As mentioned before, he had no regret about leaving his body behind. The Dragonling tried its best to warn him. It urged him to think again. But Mouth, as always reckless as hell, blew away all warnings like dust. Without wasting a second, Mouth sent his soul to Earth. And he directly swapped with Leo's soul. And just like that, Destiny started writing a new story. The next moment that happened was something nobody had even imagined. As soon as Mouth's soul entered Lee's body, he realized he was stuck in a serious life-and-death situation. There was no time to adjust. There was no warning, it was in the air. He was falling down at lightning speed. He had less than a second to understand what would happen, and then it happened. Lee's body hit the ground with such brutal force that it was hard to believe a human could withstand such an impact. It was not just a crash, it was literal destruction. His bones were shattered to pieces. The body flailed into the air like a broken ragdoll and then thudded to the ground. Completely lifeless pain. That agony was more intense than any experience of his past life. But the real problem wasn't the pain itself. The real shock was the confusion. Why as soon as he set foot on the earth? Well, soul, how did all this happen? How did this mess happen so quickly? He didn't understand anything. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. His entire body was in shock. But then everything suddenly calmed down. His hands stopped moving. In that cold, dead silence, a horrifying realization struck him. He was dying. There was no chance to change destiny, no time to fix broken things. Just like that, his body fell onto the cold, merciless ground. Everything felt strangely quirky. There was no one around to witness the fall of that once proud and powerful god. No one to help, no one to watch either. But no, this was not the end for Manhwa, not yet. As you know, some muscles in the human body cannot be consciously controlled. The heart and some internal organs are among them. Such uncontrollable parts include the heart and certain internal organs. But Manhwa had spent a whole 3 million years training his body. He has crossed every limit of the human form. His control was so precise that he could consciously regulate his blood vessels, muscles, and even organs. Therefore, within a few seconds, his heart started beating again. Yes, it hurt intensely, but he forced blood to circulate in his veins. He repaired his heart and stopped the bleeding. Gradually, Manhwa rose up again, as if nothing had happened, while his body was still screaming in pain. But anger did not arise, instead he was oddly happy. Beaten, bruised, covered in blood. He hadn't felt such an intense sensation for a long time, and this feeling was enough for him to confirm it. He has made the right decision. Arriving here, now it was Lee's turn to explore memories. To know what kind of life this boy has lived. Ma didn't take much time to understand the whole story. With that understanding, he planned to make Lei's house his new base. But walking was a problem. Walking with Lei's weak and injured legs was difficult. So Ma literally started using his hands like a monkey, crawling to maintain balance. And after a while, he finally reached Lee's house. The first thing he noticed was a cat that had curled up in front of the window. A warm welcome, the house was a small basement-like place. Ma sat on that squeaky bed and started reflecting on Lee's memories. Lee's memories revealed that he had only one male relative. And even that was very far away. Meaning Lee was completely alone. Poor, helpless, and completely pathetic, his only activity was going to school. Ma found the most interesting part when he received a school memory. A boy who bullied Lee day and night as if it was his sole mission. Constant fights, humiliation, and pure torture. For Ma, it was a prime starting point. Casual, painful, and potential-filled. He couldn't have been more thrilled than this. In excitement, Mun threw a random punch into the air. Then a sharp, piercing pain rose in his hand. It felt like his muscles had torn, something was definitely wrong. He guessed that perhaps while crawling in, he had overused the muscles in his hand. Clearly, this body was not trained for any action. Mun noticed that Lee probably never used her hands for physical work. Therefore, even simple movements were causing pain. But Mun didn't get angry, actually he was happy. Feeling this kind of pain again after so many thousands of years is oddly satisfying. Next day, the police found blood stains and broken glasses at the place where Lee's body had fallen. They quickly sealed off the area and started the investigation. Over there, Mun casually returned to the crash site, but not to observe the police investigation. The real reason was near the crash site. It was a 3-story building, Lee's school. And Mun had made a decision. He will continue Lee's daily routine. As soon as he entered the school, he started scanning the hallway, until he found Lee's classroom. As soon as Mun found Lee's classroom, his excitement was so intense that he slid the rail door with force and opened it. The door bounced back and hit his face. He got a jolt. The entire mood of Victor moment was ruined. Staggering slightly, Mun entered the classroom, muttering to himself. His entry caught Lee's attention. Lee got irritated by Mun's voice and glared at him angrily, saying, "Stupid Mun, come in quietly." Hearing this, Mun forgot his pain and stormed straight toward Lee. Mun stood directly in front of him, so close that Lee froze in shock for a moment. But it was the creepy smile on Mun's face that scared him far more than his weak body. In that very moment, Mun had complete clarity. This is the bully who repeatedly appeared in Lee's memories. He always made his life feel like a miracle. But the bully was still unaware that the guy standing opposite was no longer the same Mun. Bully said in a mocking tone, "What happened, Specs?" Today Specs came either by mistake or just in the mood to act foolishly. Before Mun could say anything, the boy suddenly shoved him straight to the face. The punch was so solid that blood started flowing from his mouth, nose, and lips, falling onto the floor. Bully, with a sarcastic laugh, taunted again. Did Specs sell it for money or lose it as he always does? Loser, but he didn't even move. He stood completely still. He had his own rules for fighting. A fair and honorable fight only begins. It begins when the intention to fight is clear from both sides. And he always makes the first attack himself. So the opponent's intent is confirmed. Now that the punch had landed, a familiar smile spread across his face. Without any delay, he delivered a massive punch right in the middle of the sentence. The boy was completely off guard. He threw the punch straight, with the same intensity as the words he had just endured. But as soon as he pulled his hand back, a sharp pain shot through his arm as if his muscles were tearing. It was a brutal reminder that this was no longer a godlike body, but a weak human body. Hearing all that noise, the teacher immediately came into the classroom, shouting angrily, "Stop fighting right now." But by then, the whole class's eyes were fixed on the fight. Everyone watched curiously to see how this nerd-type boy got into a clash with the bully. Mo received a punch from a nerd for the first time. His ego was hurt. Now completely enraged, he ran towards Ma. He ignored the teacher and the classroom crowd. He immediately defended himself. He blocked most of the attacks. He was just thinking, if he had a real body, the fight would have been over long ago. He thought about activating god powers. He wasn't even doing anything. This realization distracted him. In the next second, he got punched again. It wasn't very painful. Now the bully was not going to stop. Until Ma regretted it. On the other hand, Ma realized that his condition was now serious. Neither punches nor kicks landed, and even the god powers had failed. He had only one option left. Suddenly, Mun lowered his head. He targeted an exact point and took the incoming punch on his head. His skull was the only part of his body that was somewhat reliable. As soon as Bully's fist collided with Mun's head, the powerful impact shattered Bully's fingers. The pain was so intense that Bully shouted out like a crying child. Mun felt a surge of confidence from within. Now, to end this fight, Mun took advantage of Bully's distraction. This time, Mun moved forward himself. He clenched his hand and suddenly delivered a powerful headbutt, directly to the stomach or perhaps to the groin. Bully was once again completely shocked. The pain was so intense that he couldn't even recover. But Mun didn't stop there. In another swift move, he lifted his head and delivered a hard headbutt to Bully's jaw. This time, Bully's eyes rolled back and he fell onto his knees. He looked like a complete loser who had lost, and then he fainted. Everyone in the classroom stared. Not a single person moved. They were just pulling out phones to record the entire fight. The boy who was considered the weakest knocked down the biggest bully in school. No one had imagined this. But for Mun, it felt different. After years of feeling powerless, he fought someone with all his strength. The experience was completely surreal, but there was no time for celebration. As soon as the adrenaline left, every injury in his body started hurting all at once. There was a metallic taste of blood in his mouth, and for the first time, even he began to realize that enduring all of this might not be so easy. It took just a moment for him to realize that what had happened was surprisingly good. Feeling so much pain in a solid fight after such a long and exhausting journey was surprisingly satisfying. After the excitement settled, Mun kept watching the unconscious boy's body as if his mind was still not satisfied. Then he sat next to him. Perhaps because the boy had given him such a tough fight. Mun softly said thanks. But then something unexpected happened. Mun tilted his head, opened his mouth wide, and sliced off the boy's ear. Blood splattered everywhere, and Mun didn't just stab. He literally ripped a piece off the ear and spat it onto the floor in front of the whole class. Fear spread throughout the classroom. No one could believe that Mun had done such a thing. Everyone thought he looked like a psycho. But Mun didn't care about anyone, he remained completely calm. He wiped the blood from his face and then stared at that same boy without blinking. He hadn't even come to his senses until now. Cutting Bully's ear was Mun's own twisted method. In a way, it was a way of saying thanks, a way of leaving a path. Those who gave him entertaining fights ended up on Mun's list. Mun plays games, but this was not humiliation, it was recognition. And obtaining this title was a kind of badge of honor. Ironically, it was akin to how humans neutralize and mark an animal. The only difference was that Mun's approach was not humiliation, but a display of respect and power. Soon the story spread through the entire school like a fire, that the biggest second-year bully was beaten by the school's weakest boy, and it was so bad that emergency medical help had to be called. Mun was also watching the ambulance go, like the other students. But he was not impressed by his own health, but rather by how quickly help arrived thanks to a phone. As the ambulance was leaving, Mun waved his hand in the air as if saying goodbye to his former opponent and thought to himself that he might meet him again someday. Just then a teacher came from behind, seething with anger. The teacher said, "Go to the office." As Mu reached the office, he burst into tears. The teacher shouted, "Has your mind gone crazy? Why did you act so wildly with your classmate?" In anger, the teacher grabbed a file and raised it to hit him. But the teacher's face didn't change at all, no fear, no regret. Only a slight blush and a hint of excitement appeared on his face. It was as if he were thinking about his next appointment. Upon seeing his expression, the teacher stopped. His hand froze mid-air. He didn't have to risk his condition becoming like the boy in the hospital. He skipped the punishment and simply said, "Come tomorrow with your parents." Mu thought the teacher would beat him and that a fight would start. But when nothing happened, he abandoned the idea of a fight and quietly walked out. The teacher gave him permission to leave school before the other children. Mu followed the instructions without saying much and headed toward Li's house. On the way, Mu's mind was wandering. Unlike the other gods, Mu didn't have full knowledge of this world. He didn't understand what leaving early meant. It felt like a sign to return to the base, or something else, whatever it was. Mu thought he would use this free time to heal his body and train because more fights lay ahead. His arms were still trembling with pain. He tried to use mana again. Mana is the divine energy known as chakra in many worlds. It is the life force. It is present everywhere in nature. It gives humans superpowers. It turns humans into hunters in some worlds, wizards in others, and gamers in others. But in this world, Mu could not rely on mana. No matter how hard he tried, the mana faded quickly. The mana vanished after just a few seconds. He recalled the moment of his earlier fight. That was when the mana had failed. Now frustration was at its peak. Mu understood that he would have to rely only on his physical body. That was his only strength. As soon as Mu arrived at Li's house, he collapsed directly onto the bed. He knew recovery would take a long time and that he couldn't do anything right now. He decided he should return to the realm of the gods for a while. He wanted to check what was happening there. In a moment, as if he had entered Earth, his soul returned to his original god body. But as Mu regained consciousness, a shocking scene unfolded. Li Ho was crushing Dragling's throat. The same weak boy who had been constantly bullied on Earth had suddenly become confident. Seeing Mu, Li Ho released the dragon and approached him. He demanded, "Give me the dragon." Li did not know who Mun was. He thought it was just some random soul. It had temporarily entered this realm. It would soon leave. Li now wanted to take control of his new life by using the dragon Ling. Mun did not like at all how commandingly an agent like Li was becoming. Without any hesitation, Mun summoned a divine being. Mun summoned and forcefully grabbed Li. He clearly stated that he could not command the Lord like this. Li was completely shocked. He had no expectation whatsoever that this would happen. But Mun didn't care about his protest or complaint. He immediately started dragging him somewhere without a second thought. Mun had decided he would give the boy another chance in another world. But the expression on Li's face suggested that something else was completely on his mind. Within moments, they arrived in the domain of Lucifer, the second-ranked god in the divine realm. Mun confidently made the entrance. His firm steps clearly communicated the purpose for which he came there. There was not a single other being present. Only Lucifer, who was intensely focused on his world Elmer, stood in stark contrast to Mun. Mun marched straight into Lucifer's castle. He acted without asking for any permission, as if Lucifer were just an ordinary human. Naturally, Lucifer was not happy with Mun's rude behavior. He didn't even give a chance for an explanation. He directly refused. He even refused to listen to whatever they were asking for. But Mun didn't care about Lucifer's opinion. He flatly said, "Open the gate because I'm going to send Li to the Elmer planet." Expectedly, Lucifer reminded that Elmer is not his planet. Therefore, Mun has no right to do so. But his face was not among those who backed away. It tilted slightly forward and reminded Lucifer which god is more powerful in this scenario. He made it clear that he can do whatever he wants. To make his point stronger, Mun added, "If you have doubts about my strength, then I am ready to prove it anytime and anywhere." Poor Lucifer knew that he could not match Mun. Therefore, he began to tremble in frustration. Seeing Lucifer's hesitation, Mun himself decided to step forward and take over. He moved towards the surface of the Elm-Ur planet. As soon as he detached it, Lucifer was startled. Lucifer quickly warned, "Interfering in the domain of other gods is strictly forbidden." If an outsider god touches him, the unbreakable barrier will activate. The same thing happened. As soon as Mun touched it, a strong barrier appeared in front. But Lucifer's disbelief had nowhere to go. Mun broke it effortlessly within a few seconds. It was something Lucifer had never imagined before. Lucifer, immersed in shock, gazed at Mun. Calmly said, "The rules of the universe change only when someone truly wants to change them." When someone truly wants to change them. Then calmly opened her godly eyes. She released Lei. She urged him to move forward and jump into the hole that was made on the planet. Lee was hesitating, he was clearly scared. But Mun reminded him, "That's exactly what you have always been asking for. And now the opportunity stands before you." Lee then once again requested Mew to give him the Dragon Link so that he could dominate his new life. But Mew clearly stated that he had no intention of giving his assistant away and directly shot Lee to Elmer Planet. After that, Mew pondered for a while that nowadays all the kids want everything on a silver platter. As if they've forgotten how to work hard themselves. Now that everything is settled, Mew casually glanced at Lucifer and said, "Take care of the kid," then left. Lucifer meanwhile was burning with humiliation and anger. He could only think, if only I had the power to tear Mew apart into pieces. Lucifer's story wasn't much different from Mew's. He used to be the first demon lord of history. When Mew took the title of the strongest over every life form on the planet, he challenged his god. In the beginning of the battle, Lucifer summoned a blinding light that soon turned into a massive magical sword. That sword was many times larger than that god. Lucifer threw it directly at the god. The god couldn't stop it. It split into two. He couldn't even save himself. After defeating that god, Lucifer took its place, but he was not satisfied. He challenged every god of the divine realm, defeated one after another, and placed himself on the ultimate throne. Despite being a demon, he became a god. God of gods, absolute, invincible, supreme legend, names that everyone respected, but his glory couldn't last long. One day, Mew came and crushed him in the same way he had crushed everyone else. Lucifer's mighty image broke in front of everyone. In the humiliation and anger that burned him, Lucifer swore a vow. "I will take revenge on the descendants of this man, Mew." Back in the present, Mew was comfortably riding his Dragon Link. While proceeding toward his domain, he didn't know that something in the sky was secretly watching him. A demon had probably been sent by Lucifer himself. He was tracking every move of Mew. He was waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike back. Just like Lucifer was counting every moment for the opportunity to take revenge for his humiliation. Just like that bully from Lee's school who had just come to his senses, he was also eagerly waiting to see Lee dead. The bully, while lying in a hospital bed, picked up his phone and decided that he needed to call a more powerful person to teach Lee a lesson. With fiery anger, he started scrolling through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for. On the other side of the city, someone was exerting all his strength on the punching bag. That boy's name was Kaio, champion of the middleweight class in the youth division. His intensive training session was suddenly interrupted by a loud ringtone. In anger, Shio abruptly stopped his punch mid-air. Sweat dripped from his body as he turned around to see whose phone the annoying noise was coming from. Just then, a blonde boy casually walked in and said, "This is my phone." He went over and picked up the phones. He answered it in an annoyed tone, confirming that the boy was Shio. He is a boxer with 2 years of experience. The caller and no one else was the very same bully who had been beaten, his voice clearly showing helplessness. Without any introduction, he told Shio that if he wanted, he would have a new phone delivered to him. He just needed a small job done for him. At first, Shio felt a bit surprised by this request. But when he found the deal easy and profitable, he agreed and asked what he had to do in return. The next day in class, when everything seemed normal, he spoke as if nothing had happened at all. As soon as he moved towards his seat, the entire classroom became completely silent for a moment. All eyes were fixed on him. Then the conversations gradually started. Students whispered that the boy who used to bully others was now in a pathetic state. At first, he tried to ignore it. But when these whispers turned into jokes that he had been defeated, he felt angry. He could no longer bear it. To prevent himself from becoming a subject of mockery, he forcefully slammed his bag on the ground and shouted that he could still clean everyone today. Even after being neutralized, he remained defiant. He challenged anyone who doubted his strength. Then the class president, Ananya, who wore glasses, stood up and shouted loudly, "Either stay silent or leave the classroom." Hearing that a girl was speaking to him, Rahul's anger increased. Rahul's anger increased further. Rahul couldn't tolerate that. Even the class president was ready to fight him. In his anger, Rahul grabbed a random chair and was about to throw it at Ananya to intimidate everyone again. But at that moment, the classroom door slammed open and Mr. Singh, a massive teacher, entered. All the students were shocked. Rahul immediately put his chair down. He sat back in his seat as if nothing had happened. The teacher looked around in all directions and looked towards the class president, who was still standing angrily. He asked her what had happened and why she was outside her seat. But Ananya did not tell the truth. She quietly returned to her seat and said that there was nothing special. The teacher did not ask much else. But as he was leaving, Mr. Singh told Ananya to meet him after class. Ananya became a bit curious upon hearing this and wondered why the teacher wanted to meet her alone. After school had ended, when Ananya met Mr. Singh, it turned out he wanted a favor from her. Because she was the class president and could be trusted, they told her to check on Lee, who was absent today and whose phone was not picking up. In return, the teacher promised to give her a recommendation letter that could be useful in her senior year. It was a request, but the girl knew she couldn't refuse it. Without saying anything, she nodded. Without wasting any time, she arrived at Lee's house. Her face was completely uninterested. She didn't care about Lee's condition. She just wanted to get this task done quickly. She knocked on the door and shouted, "Is anyone home or not?" When no response came, she hesitated a bit and turned the door handle. To her surprise, the door was unlocked. She slowly stepped in, and as soon as she entered, she froze. Lee's body was lying there. It looked completely lifeless. The entire room was filled with filth and bugs were flying around. Lee's condition was terrifying. His eyes were rolled back and his mouth was wide open. The girl let out a loud scream of fear when she saw this. She thought Lee had already died. Without wasting a single second, she picked up the phone and called an ambulance. The paramedics arrived immediately and took Lee to the hospital. The doctors quickly understood what had happened. Lee had probably fainted due to severe starvation. He was not cared for by anyone thereafter. He was admitted to the hospital and placed on a nutrient IV so his condition could be stabilized. Then something strange happened. Lee's body, which had been calm until then, suddenly started twitching. At that moment, the mouth returned to Lee's body. As soon as Lee's eyes opened, he was completely confused. This place felt completely unknown to him. Before Lee could understand anything, something strange occurred to him. As soon as he looked down, he realized something was stuck in his hand. It was an IV line that was sending nutrient serum into his body. He had spent his entire life battling hardships. Lee had no knowledge about the hospital's tools or technology. And this strange serum was no exception either. He was staring at Muck with curiosity and a bit of unease, as if trying to understand what was happening, even though he knew nothing about the serum. Like a god, he immediately understood that the serum was sending something into his body, and it was traveling only through his vessels. With his godlike senses, he could clearly feel his body rapidly absorbing the nutrients, which was causing his recovery to be super fast. His mouth felt as if some healing magic was being performed. However, he knew well that this wasn't magic. As soon as Muck began to slowly move his head and his consciousness returned, the girl seated nearby noticed that he had already woken up. Seeing the strange, creepy smile on his face, the girl thought that perhaps this boy was a little crazy. Still, she asked, "Do you remember what happened to you?" But without waiting for his answer, she quickly grabbed her bag. Then she got up and said, "I am going back to school." She told him to report everything to the teacher. Just as she said, he instantly got up and tried to stop her. He didn't realize that she was a girl, but she assumed that perhaps he was the one who had helped her recover so quickly. She thought he was the one who had helped her recover so quickly. But in typical Muck style, instead of saying thanks, he asked for something else. The girl was in a hurry to leave. She also wanted to know more about the meaning of the serum and the lives of the people here. She extracted a drop of serum with her palm. He gave a forced smile and asked if there was any place where he could become strong and train. The girl turned her head slightly and gave him a sideways glance. To be honest, in her eyes, this boy did not look like an athlete. Just by looking at his dirty, broken-down house, it seemed he had no interest in sports at all. Nevertheless, after thinking a bit, she suggested a place. Not a fancy place, just a simple outdoor gym near the park, where basic workout equipment was set up. Muck didn't waste any time and went straight to the park. He quickly started doing pull-ups, pushing his body with full strength. After getting tired, he fell to the ground and took a break. His sweat-soaked body was visible all around. Muck was impressed. For him, these simple exercise tools were no less than advanced professional training gear. About 4,000 years later, he returned to Earth again, and after that he never paid attention to human progress. From the perspective of an Earth god, even these basic machines seemed like a revolution. In his era, people trained in very different primitive ways that were not only difficult, but also less effective. Now Muk started trying every piece of equipment in a random way, even though he didn't have a clear idea of how to use them. Just then, during training, something small knocked into his back and he fell to the ground. It was a small stone. When he turned around and looked, he was shocked. The bully who had beat him before was standing there, and this time he wasn't alone. He also brought a boxer named Chiel. The bully started insulting Muk from a distance. He bragged like a cowardly dog, but didn't have the courage to come forward himself. Muk wasn't affected by his words. The girl sat down, picked up the stone and asked, "Who threw this?" The bully grew bolder because Chiel was with him, so he shouted, "I threw it." Then he started babbling nonsense that Muk would have to pay him back, and that his cousin Chiel, a professional boxer, would beat him up. But he was just speaking when Mouth saw an opportunity and suddenly threw a punch. The boy fell to the ground, screaming in pain because his broken nose had snapped again. This was the retribution for throwing a stone at a god, and Mouth was even more pleased. All of this was happening on Earth. But the situation in the real world of the gods was even more intense. A regular meeting of the gods was about to take place. But Mouth did not come there. Instead, his lone assistant, Dragon Ling, arrived there. Nervously, the small dragon began reading Mouth's message. But before he had even said a few words, Lucifer interrupted him. Looking at him angrily, he said, "How could the courage of Mouth's assistant come to the gods' meeting and speak first at all?" Poor Dragon Ling was scared by Lucifer's intimidating presence. In a panic, he made it clear, "I just came to deliver this message from the Mouth." There was no intention to disrespect or insult. Scared but determined, Dragon Ling began reading the letter in a trembling voice. But the message wasn't anything special. It was the usual talk from the Mouth to the remaining gods. If they appoint someone, inform him so he can fight them. Upon hearing this, Lucifer's anger exploded. He slammed his hand hard on the table. As the second most powerful god in the divine realm, he could not bear that Mouth does everything by its own will. But he is now even ignoring the gods' meetings. Technically, he was not wrong, and most of the gods were internally agreeing with him. But nobody had the courage to openly criticize him. Lucifer said again, "The gods' meeting is held for this reason, so that we can maintain the safety and stability of our worlds." But to him, everything feels like a game. And that is his biggest problem. Then the third most powerful god, the Archer god, also spoke up. He said, "If something abnormal is happening on Earth, so the responsibility is ours, not Mouth's." And this was unacceptable for a god as strong as Mouth. Lucifer seized the chance and hit the table again, this time even harder. This belongs to Mouth. Mouth is now pushing all aspects of the game to the edge of collapse for all worlds. In Lucifer's eyes, whenever Mouth tries to solve a problem, it only makes things worse. That situation has gotten even worse. To make his point more solid, Lucifer turned to the 9th-ranked deity Cyclops, god of the divine realm, and asked if he remembered. He recalled the incident that occurred 1,000 years ago when the Cyclops god was on the brink of planet destruction. Then a terrifying and massive creature, as big as an entire planet, attacked the Cyclops planet. It was not a normal creature. There was a rare void creature. It could swallow an entire planet in a few seconds. The creature began to tear the planet apart. Then something came straight out through the middle of its body. It was split into 2 uneven parts. It was nobody else. It was God Mu himself in his usual form. He had a flushed face. When the chance to fight arose, Mu eliminated that joint creature in a single strike. Lucifer used this story to make the point that the aftermath of the destruction was caused only because of Mouth. He explained that if Mouth worked with the other gods together instead of acting alone, there wouldn't have been so much destruction. After presenting his case entirely and perhaps dragging the other gods to his side by hooking them, Lucifer declared, "Now again, such an unworthy human who isn't fit to be a god is being given another chance, which tampers with their world's safety." On Earth, the battered boy begins to speak up again. He shouts loudly at Mouth, "I will call my boxer cousin. You've done this, he will take revenge on you." Kial, that boxer cousin, was intrigued upon hearing this. Seeing Mouth's movement and punch speed, he was impressed for a short while. Curiously, he asked, "Do you practice martial arts or any sports?" But Mouth replied casually, "I don't play any sports. I just like to fight, not to play." Upon hearing this answer from Mouth, Kial thought of him as an overconfident, foolish middle schooler. He spat out his chewing gum. He took a fighting stance while smirking. "Let's start as you wanted." Kial made the first move. He quickly moved forward to test Mouth. His first punch was fast and accurate. Landed directly on Mouth's face. Mouth didn't even have time to duck or block. But the reaction he received made Kial wobble. As an experienced boxer, Kial observes every movement. And it seemed completely abnormal to him that Mouth hadn't even moved despite seeing the punch coming. Just like that beaten boy who had hired Kial didn't even know that Mouth was not a human but a god. And a god who is a madman about fighting. Kial had no idea that Mouth never even dodged a preemptive strike. For him, taking the first hit is a signal. Now the fight has already started. He yelled with his green, copy-like mouth. "It's there, D2 is there. Combat your favorite thing too." Seeing his scary smile and strange gestures, Kial started to think. Is this boy some kind of psycho teenager? Then suddenly Mouth copied Kial's fighting stance and jumped straight toward him. Kial thought it was just a dumb copycat move. He casually blocked Mouth's punch, or perhaps he thought he had blocked it. In reality, the power of Mouth's punch caused him to slide backward. His hand trembled with pain, he is himself. I wondered how such a weak-looking boy could have so much strength. His face now looked even more excited. He was genuinely enjoying his power. But he knew his current body was still weak. You cannot entirely rely on him. He threw a punch and completely tensed his muscles. After the impact, the muscles in his hands began to scream. As if he said bro needs rest, but Mouth didn't care. He even enjoyed the pain more. This was the real fight for him. It was a thrill he hadn't experienced even in god form. Chiel was still confused when Mouth pulled out his belt and tied it around his arm. He knew that his current body was frail, and recovery would also take time. Therefore, this smart move could have saved him. Baton Boy started shouting while watching all this from the sideline. Using the belt is unfair. But obviously neither Mouth nor Chiel cared at all about his opinion. Chiel attacked again. This time being more serious than before, he threw continuous punches. Left-right non-stop, Mouth blocked most of the punches. But because of the belt, his body was quite limited. Chiel's attack was very aggressive. While defending, Muck started analyzing the opponent's style. He realized that Chiel is fast and accurate, but also very predictable. In a short time, Muck began to anticipate every move of his opponent. When Chiel tried to surprise him, Muck not only blocked his punch, but also struck his arm during the mid-swing. Chiel didn't understand anything. In just a few seconds, his hand was already broken. He screamed in pain. Muck just watched him silently as if he were amused by his condition. Upon hearing the scream, Muck became a little confused. He thought that perhaps the guy from Chiel and Lee's class is Kajin's. Both of their overdramatic actions seemed alike. But Muck didn't waste much time. He delivered another sudden punch. He directly knocked out the distracted Chiel. For a short while, everything became quiet. His friend or cousin or whatever just stayed standing there. The stunt was completely over, and Muck's face gradually began to change. A terrifying, excited expression. The whole face seemed to start shining with the excitement of the fight. He declared that the time has come now. He aimed to settle the scores of all those problems. It was especially because this was not the first time. When you all have taken a fight with me. He was the boy who was previously very arrogant. While defending, Muck started analyzing the opponent's style. He realized that Chiel is fast and accurate, but also very predictable. In a short time, Muck began to anticipate every move of his opponent. When Chiel tried to surprise him, Muck not only blocked his punch, but also struck his arm during the mid-swing. Chiel didn't understand anything. In just a few seconds, his hand was already broken. He screamed in pain. Muck just watched him silently as if he were amused by his condition. Upon hearing the scream, Muck became a little confused. He thought that perhaps the guy from Chiel and Lee's class is Kajin's. Both of their overdramatic actions seemed alike. But Muck didn't waste much time. He delivered another sudden punch. He directly knocked out the distracted Chiel. For a short while, everything became quiet. His friend or cousin or whatever just stayed standing there. The stunt was completely over, and Muck's face gradually began to change. A terrifying, excited expression. The whole face seemed to start shining with the excitement of the fight. He declared that the time has come now. He aimed to settle the scores of all those problems. It was especially because this was not the first time. When you all have taken a fight with me. He was the boy who was previously very arrogant. Now it all clicked into place for him. Kial is completely out of the fight. And now no one was left to save him. Now his painful end was set in stone. He had no escape route left. Mun slowly advanced towards his classmate Lee to settle today's fight. As soon as he approached, he realized the opponent was no longer worth fighting. But it didn't matter to Mun because this was the boy who had started the fight by throwing a stone. And who had called in the boxer. Without showing any mercy, Mun beat him mercilessly. He tried his new copying techniques one by one, and in the end, he finished the job with a crushing knee strike. Mun now found peace, but there was a question in his mind: why doesn't this boy admit defeat? Then he realized it himself. He didn't even give a chance to concede defeat. Mu left his mark on the boxer as well and departed after releasing both of them. Returning to Li's house, he sat on the bed. He was happy that everything was going according to his plan. But his weak body and fragile bones began troubling him again. So he decided to go to God's Rail now to see what was happening there. He will also get the item he ordered from Dragon Link. He attempted a soul transfer, but this time nothing happened. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was still in Lei's house. He couldn't understand why he couldn't return to his real body. Whatever happened in God Rail began from Lucifer's domain. A few days ago, Mu forcefully threw Li onto Elmer's planet. It was without Lucifer's permission. We already know. That day, Mun completely ignored Lucifer. He came without considering Lucifer's opinion and did whatever he wanted, then left. But he had no idea that his actions were leading Lucifer to his limits. When Mu was returning to his domain, Dragon Ling asked him about the journey to Earth. Mu excitedly said how much he enjoyed that trip. But he also mentioned that his new body felt quite weak on Earth. In that conversation, Mu ordered his assistant to find a recovery magic orb. He thought that perhaps this would allow his body to recover quickly. But there was a small problem. Magic items were common on Elmer's and some planets because it was believed that there was no shortage there. But it was not the case on Earth. Their magical objects could only be obtained through divine blessings or the will of the gods. Therefore, they are very rare. For this reason, throughout human history, only a few people were able to naturally use them, and such people became godlike for humans. When Mu returned to his domain, Dragon Ling promised that the next time the God Rail arrives, a magic orb will be ready for him. As soon as they stepped off the Dragon Ling, Mu's assistant gave a reminder about the upcoming gods meeting. Mu casually put his hand into his pants and said that he had prepared something for himself. Because of the repeated complaints, the assistant became disbelieving. But it wasn't a big gift. Just a small letter, and we already know that. What was written in that letter? After delivering his message and fulfilling his responsibility, Mu went straight to that miniature Earth model. And he placed his hand on its surface to return to Li's body. Dragon Ling, who was already annoyed, tried to stop him anyway. At least attend the meeting. But Mu ignored his words again and sent his soul back to Earth. He had no idea that a small demon was hovering in the sky. Silently observing, every move was being reported to Mu's biggest enemy. The scene shifts back to the present, where Lucifer was analyzing the entire matter. He had no idea whatsoever what Mu was going to do. But he had no idea that his body was empty now, without a soul. Mun's absence from the meeting made Lucifer sure that he would not stay in the God circuit for much longer. And then Lucifer realized that this was the opportunity. An opportunity that comes once every 1,000 years to take revenge, and he could not miss this chance under any circumstances. Without any warning, Lucifer suddenly activated his spell. As soon as the spell was cast, sharp purple lightning bolts that looked like spears fell onto Dragon Link. But Dragon Link's senses were sharp. He jumped back at the last moment and avoided every spear. His expression, which was earlier awkward and embarrassed, had now become completely serious and ready for battle. He asked in anger, "What is all this? Are you really declaring war against Mun, the Earth God?" Lucifer was now feeling confident. He knew that Mun would not interfere. He floated slowly in the air and spoke. "I will personally take Mun off his divine seat." And that was his official declaration of war. Dragon Link, without wasting any time, compressed his fiery breath and released a deadly flame blast that headed toward a laser like Lucifer. At first it seemed that Lucifer was caught off guard, but he comfortably dodged it. Surprisingly, that flame did not dissipate. It spun, traveled to the far side of the godlike planet realm, and exploded. The explosion was so intense that Archer God had to quickly create a magical shield. First to save himself, then the other gods. The other gods panicked, but Lucifer didn't move an inch. He neither ran nor fled nor built a shield. Flames and shock waves spread in all directions like a nuclear blast, but no damage was done. Dragon Link realized that his first deadly move was completely useless. Now he has activated his ultimate move. Polymorph released, his entire body's form started to change. Wild red lightning began to crackle around him, and an intense aura enveloped him, to show how serious he is about his master's protection. But Lucifer was still unaffected. Instead, he smirked and said, "I'll deal with you like a little girl of the mouth." Now it's the mouth's turn. For the punishment he gave me, The dragon cleared the area. He will do anything to save his master. But things didn't go according to his plan. M's royal assistant, the same Dragon Link, was badly defeated by Lucifer. He became trapped in a tangled spell of life. He couldn't move nor could he do anything. His whole body was badly injured. Archer God took a long breath. Casually, he said that this place is no longer suitable for a proper godly meeting. He left. The rest of the gods remained there, standing in stunned silence. Lucifer and Dragon Link, after witnessing this terrifying fight, were frozen with fear. No one was even moving. Help was a distant prospect. Archer God's quiet departure didn't escape Lucifer's eyes. Suddenly, Lucifer called out to him and, giving a sharp look, asked a direct question. Which side are you on? In support of the explanation or against it? But Archer God just kept drifting in the air. Casually replying, he said, I am neutral. I neither support nor oppose. Lucifer absolutely didn't like this answer. But he clearly said, it's okay. As long as you don't interfere, I'm fine with it. Then he coldly looked at the remaining gods and asked, does anyone object to the explanation given on the spot? But seeing Dragon Link's condition, no one dared to comment on the terrible state of a god-level being. Over there, Dragon Link was still alive. He was trying to warn Lucifer. You cannot face the mouths. But Lucifer just smoked and delivered a chilling revelation. He knew that the mouth is not here. He is currently on Earth, living in the body of a weak, pathetic human. The Dragonling turned out to be a total ruse. He thought that this secret was known only to him. But now everything is understood. Why did Lucifer just start the rebellion now? But Lucifer did not admit that he spied on the mouth and discovered all this. Instead, he placed the blame solely on the Dragonling. It was said that his overconfidence and lack of vigilance gave him this chance to know everything. The Dragonling could not tolerate this insult. He had no other options left. He made one last desperate attempt. He launched a surprise attack with his massive tail, hoping that perhaps this time Lucifer would be caught off guard. But then the same thing happened. Lucifer stood completely still, as if he didn't know anything. And as soon as the final second arrived, he dodged with perfect precision and sliced the Dragonling's tail into pieces with a magical weapon. It didn't matter whether the weapon was a spear or a sword. Lucifer's power was that formidable. The poor Dragonling's tail was cut into several pieces, but Lucifer did not kill it. Because he knew that as long as the mouth's assistant remains alive, he could locate it. He can trace its location on Earth. He thought of capturing the mouth in that weak human body and making it endure the same humiliation that Lucifer had suffered. That was all the satisfaction he needed. His demonic laughter began to resonate through the air. Meanwhile, the Dragonling was spitting blood. His entire body was trembling. He was powerless. Nothing could stop Lucifer. Meanwhile, the situation on Earth was also not particularly good. Kial was badly injured, and his coach scolded him severely for getting into a street fight. As a punishment, he had to take a long recovery break before important matches. After the lecture, the coach dismissed him. While leaving the gym, Kial was internally holding Kangal responsible for this entire mess. As soon as he reached the exit, Kangal entered the gym from the opposite side, and the two awkwardly came face to face. Kangal immediately noticed how badly beaten and angry Kial was. Without delay, he asked, "What happened to you?" Kial was embarrassed. He felt ashamed to admit that a random weak-looking guy had defeated him. Kangal was one of the country's best boxers, and then a sneaky idea came to Kial's mind. He lowered his bruised face. He made a sad and shameful expression and then started lying, and to make it believable, he forced himself to cry. Tears fell onto the floor. He told a story that he went to help his brother who was being bullied, and in return the bullies got together and beat him mercilessly. He covered his face. He presented himself as an innocent victim who just wanted to do the right thing. Kial thought that Kangal would become emotional, but Kangal remained completely stone-faced. He ignored the tears and just walked away casually. On his way out, he just told Kial, "Be a little more careful before the match. All this happened because of your own mistake." Kial's entire plan failed. He stopped crying as soon as Kangal left. Disappointment settled over his face. But as soon as he was about to leave, Kial's voice came again. Kial froze completely. He felt that Kangal had caught the entire lie. But Kangal actually believed it. And now he was just asking who had done all this to him. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Mun was still sitting on Lei's dirty bed. His frustration was increasing. He was wondering why he couldn't return to his original body. Based on his divine knowledge and experience, he had only one conclusion. His original godly body was seriously damaged somewhere. But this reason didn't satisfy him either. He knew that Dragon Link was protecting him, and his body was not ordinary, something that could be easily harmed. Then his eyes widened. The realization hit him. Had all the gods banded together to attack him? Now this theory seemed correct to him. He jumped out of bed entirely panicked. If this is true, he doesn't have time. He would have to act quickly. He didn't understand what to do, and this thinking made him even angrier. In frustration, he punched Lee's pillow hard. He thought that if he didn't return to his body, everything might go out of control. His mood worsened. He couldn't bear the thought that the gods, who once didn't have the courage to face him one-on-one, were now taking advantage of his condition. He couldn't control his anger and started punching the bed and pillow repeatedly with his fists. A single wish was swirling in his mind. Just a chance to show all the cowardly gods their true place. If he got that chance, he swore to devour them all in an instant. After some time, when he grew tired, he stopped punching. Now he thought it better to just relax and think. He reminded himself, Dragon Link, my protector. He isn't an ordinary being who would fall so easily, even if all the gods came together. This thought was somewhat calming. He thought, if I can't do anything for my original body now, at least I can make this body strong. This way, my survival chances would increase. Thinking this, he returned to the training area. This time he trained with full energy. He ignored arm muscles and focused on others. When he first trained his abdominal muscles, they felt as if they were screaming in pain. But strangely, the same pain made the training more enjoyable. He was doing pull-ups, and the more pain he felt, the more he laughed. His crazy laughter echoed throughout the hall. But hearing his obnoxious laughter, others began to think he was a psycho or mad. In the middle of that intense training, someone suddenly called his name. The unexpected voice distracted his attention, and he fell straight to the ground. The loud thud was caused by the girl calling him, none other than Lee's class president. She was clearly annoyed. Not because of his laughter, but because Lee hadn't come to school for several days. Both decided to sit in a quiet place to avoid the scene. They found a bench in a corner, and the conversation started there. Mun spoke casually.